Welcome to Bohemian Rhapsody. Today I'm going to be wrapping a gift for a baby boy, and that's lots of fun for me because I don't wrap baby gifts very often. What I'm going to be doing is using a combination of different materials that I've used before, but also introducing a couple of new ideas and things just to change up the look of your gifts a bit. So I'm going to be using some punches. I'm not going to be going into a lot of detail with the punches. I've done a lot of discussing of punches previously, but I am going to be incorporating something a little different in terms of an adhesive, just to show you how you can kind of change the look a little bit. I'm also using a couple of different kinds of ribbon, and if you look at the two colors that I'm going to be using, they wouldn't necessarily be colors that you would think of as going together, but when I show you the paper, it's a nice vintage paper, and it just both of the colors are highlighted in the paper, and I just think it's a really cool kind of a different look for a baby gift. I'm going to be using a little bit of wire, decorative wire, and this is the different adhesive I'm going to be using. These are just little kind of adhesive dots, and what they do is they give, when you use them, they give a little bit of elevation to whatever element you happen to be gluing on. And so I'm just going to go through and show you how I pull this gift together. So I've talked about wrapping with scrap paper many times before. This particular pad I love because it actually comes with 180 sheets. Through the video you won't be able to see the whole picture, but there are many different kinds of paper, and often what happens in these scrap paper pads is the different colors and the different patterns actually go together quite nicely, and so because of that you can kind of coordinate the papers and the different elements together. So I specifically wanted to show you something in here today that I'm going to be using in addition to the paper that I chose. I've got this really cool paper that I found that I'm using for the gift, and I'll show you in a minute. But this particular page is meant, you can kind of cut out the different labels, and you could use them on a scrapbooking layout or if you were doing a card. And so in this particular case, I've tied that into the gift that I'm using. And so the nice thing about the scrapbooking paper pad is that, like I say, you'll have the pages that you can use, and I always make sure that I get a fairly lightweight if I'm thinking of using it for gift wrapping as well, because the heavier cardstock, of course, won't fold as well. But then these elements all coordinate with whatever colors you're using. And so it's just a really nice way to be able to add extra things to your gift. So when you're purchasing scrapbooking pads, just think of that as well. Some of those different elements, sometimes there's lettering, sometimes there's different signs. Some of those can fit wonderfully into whatever you're doing. This is the awesome paper that I found in there. I absolutely love it. It is not probably traditionally what you would think of in terms of a baby boy gift wrapping, but I love, it's got little robots and cars and submarines and rockets and kind of all things boy. And so anyway, I just love this paper. And what I'm going to do today when I do this gift is I'm going to actually stand it on end. I had to put two pieces of paper together. I never really especially with this paper, it's so busy, it doesn't really matter that the pattern doesn't line up, but I always try, if I can, the top of the gift or the sides, I try to make sure that the seams aren't there, so I get the seams off to the side a bit. So what I'm going to do for this one, again, is you could certainly finish your gift off and put your elements right here on top. I'm actually just going to, for something different, I'm going to stand it on end today. So I'm going to be covering up the end fold here. I'm going to be using the two different kinds of ribbon that I showed you. And so you can either have the join at the top or you can have the join at the bottom. So in this case, I have to make sure that my pictures are upright. I'm going to do the join at the top, so I'm going to simply swing it underneath. And the way I'm going to do this one is just with some double-sided tape. So I'm just going to put some double-sided tape on my ribbon, and then I will do some on the other side as well. So you just want to make sure that when you're doing that, that you're lining it up so it's centered down the middle of the gift for sure. So just make sure I've got that kind of in the right spot. I am using an element to cover that up, so it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, but you want it fairly centered. And then I'm just going to do the same thing on the other end here. Just use my double-sided tape. I'm not using a bow today, so because of that, I need to tape it off to secure it rather than tying the ends as I would if I was using a bow or some kind of a tie. So I'm just going to join those. And then I'm just going to take my other ribbon and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to be doing a tie with this either, so I'm going to be doing the same idea. I want to stack them. So I'm just putting one over the other, and again I'm going to just put some double-sided tape. It's going to be hidden so it won't matter after. Make sure that's fairly centered. But again, I can kind of fiddle with it because it's going to end up underneath the element that I'm adding in. It's just a little easier to do your taping on the table as opposed to on the top of the gift or the ribbon. So again, I'm securing that. I see this got a little wonky, but that's okay. It'll just slide right back on. This might end up being just a little bit long. I wanted the overlap there to secure it, but it might be a bit long, so I'm just going to trim that off. I use my punch to cut out a yellow scallop circle, and then I use just a circle punch to cut out the blue, and you can see I've stacked them. I already put the adhesive in it was just plain tape. I just joined them together because I wanted to make sure that I had it nice and centered. This is a gift I'm actually giving away, so I wanted it nice and centered. Or I have a little star that I cut that I'm going to put in the center of that. And what I wanted to do, instead of using the double-sided tape, which would just have it sitting flat on top, this is where I'm going to just pop out one of those little circles. So you just kind of push it out and pop it out. Set it in the center. It's actually double-sided, so there's a little film or whatever covering both sides of it because it's a double-sided little dot. So both sides are going to be an adhesive. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take that and you're going to set it in the center. And it'll be a little bit hard to tell probably on camera, but I'll try to shoot a couple of angles at the end so you can see it. But what you'll notice is, you might even be able to tell that it's got a bit of dimension. It's raised just a little bit if I hold it this way. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's not sitting flat. So it just gives a tiny bit of dimension because I'm not putting any kind of a bow or anything that adds height to it. I thought I would like to just use that adhesive that will just raise that star just a little bit off the others. Then what I'm going to do is just secure this whole thing on. Again, I could use the raised dots for this as well, but sometimes the base element, it might actually catch and rip right off just in transport and so on. So I'm using just double-sided tape for that. And then I'm just going to adhere it to the center. I just have to turn my gift here just a little bit so I can make sure that I've got everything centered. You'll notice that my scallop circle's almost a little bit big for that, but I don't mind how that kind of comes together and looks. The last thing I did was I took that page and I decided on this one that said, "Oh boy," I thought it was just cute, and instead of getting an actual card, I'm just going to write on the flip side of that. So I just mounted it onto some yellow cardstock just to give it some weight because it's really just plain paper, the "oh boy" sign. And so it's just a little bit heavier with that cardstock, and then I just hole punched it and added a little string on. And what I'm going to do is let that kind of hang down the side. But again, everything is quite flat, and so in order to just add a little bit of dimension, I'm going to use some wire. I had showed you the wire in the first frame, and it's actually maybe hard to see the color here, but it's actually a very light blue, very similar to the blue that's in the gift wrap. And this is just a tool. You could use a pencil, you can use whatever. It's just something to wrap. And what I'm going to do is just wrap that wire all the way around just to kind of create a swirl. I'm just going to show you how you can so easily just add a little bit of extra interest. So I'm just going to kind of feed it through the hole. And I don't know, in my mind I kind of think I want the front part smaller, but what I'm going to do then is just kind of bend this over. Just kind of play with it and stretch it a little bit. Really doesn't, it's not going to fall out. It doesn't really matter how you do it. You're just going to kind of play, and it's just going to add a little bit of interest, a little bit of maybe fun to the gift, and so or to the card. So I'm just going to leave that kind of dangling on the side. So what I'm going to do is bring this back in. Now I'm thinking about this, and I probably should have attached my little card first, so I'm going to go back a step here. I'm just going to take a piece of regular Scotch tape. It's going to end up being covered up, but I do need to attach this, and I want it to be under my element. So I'm just taking my knot there and just taping it right through. If you were tying, if you were using a bow, of course I would tie it right through, and that's why I kind of forgot, because I'm just taping that. I might put one more piece just to make sure it's nice and secure. I'm going to actually cover that knot right up just to hold it down a bit. And then I'm going to put this back on. So again, I'm going to have to just tip it over a bit just to make sure that I've got it nice and centered. Yeah. And there we have it. So from this angle, you'll see just the kind of the finished element. It's so simple. I just layered up 2 different colors of ribbon that coordinated so well with this kind of vintage paper, and then just adding in the paper elements. And I like how this one has just a little bit of height with a mounting circle, and it just raises it a little bit. And then the card will just hang off the side. It has a little bit of extra interest with the wire, and of course this will end up being the card that I use with the gift in lieu of another card. So it's all done in one thing, and it coordinates so well because of course this this paper came right in the same pad, and so all of those colors, if you look how they connect, it's just so cool. And I just think it's a really fun kind of vintage look, and just a different look for a baby gift. And so yeah, there you have it. I hope you like that idea, and I hope you'll visit Bohemian Rhapsody again for more great gift wrapping tutorials. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click like and share, and we'll see you again. Thanks for visiting.